so Dr. Alvin Ang, we're really looking forward to hearing from you. I know marami tayong update. Mamaya maraming questions dyan. Okay, May 2022 is coming up. Maybe may konting changes tayo, but it's good that you always have the macro view on what's happening right now. But without further ado, okay, inaabangan natin to. The one and only, okay, my favorite economist, my dear friend, okay, Dr. Alvin Ang.
Right. Thank you, Randall, for this opportunity to share my views. By the way, yung share ko, personal ko to, has nothing to do with Ateneo or ano man, lalong walang kinalaman sa kahit na anong political party. This is my own view of how the economy is going to be after the elections, right? So let me share my screen. Okay, kita na ba? Right, I hope nakikita na ng lahat, ano? So I'm going to share some few slides. I hope those of you who have taken the master class, yung macro, is just more or less a review of what you have learned now applied into real settings, no? So I'm going to talk about the general lahat, ano to, very hindi siya pointed to a particular sector but general, and then we're going to find out what happens to the economy, at least in my view, what's going to look like after the elections, right? Or even now where we are. Let me begin by showing you. A lot of people always ask these questions. Sabi nila, pag election time, tumataas daw ang economic growth ng any country, particularly in the Philippines. So this is a slide I borrowed from my colleague at the Ateneo, Dean Louis Dumlao, who very nicely is showing you in this graph that every time there's a presidential election, you can see the blip, no? Market yung growth, no? And then sa tatlong past presidential election from 2000, you have seen that the increases. No? The pinakamahinang increase was 2016. Hindi siya ganun kalaking growth unlike the previous. No? But because we are already growing faster, kaya hindi na siya, may cap na siya. No? So some sort, hindi ka pwedeng tumaas pa doon. Remember yung pinag-usapan natin sa macro, may capacity constraint. You know? And so what are we looking at here? 2022. Mukhang ganun na naman, no? Especially that movement restrictions have been lifted. People are able to go out. And a lot of campaigns now are done face-to-face. So alam nyo na yun, kumakalat na uli yung t-shirt, yung mga sales ng campaign materials, tapos two-way pa yan. Meron ka pang, you have the social media part and you have the physical part now. So that's what is pushing growth. So most likely, mataas din yung growth natin itong second quarter. Malaking babawiin from the onslaught of the Omicron in January. We return bullish February, March, April, May, until June will be quite strong for the economy. All right. Suffice it to say that actually the ceiling of our growth somehow is about 6% on the average. So if we grow faster than 6, ano na yan? Parang maganda na. No, sobrang bonus na. Pero 6 dapat minimum growth natin, 6 siya. Okay? All right. But look, marami nagsasabi, yeah, we are growing, but are we back on track? Because we were derailed by the pandemic. Are we back on track? If you look at the 2019 levels, that's about 19 trillion. 19 trillion yan. Now, in 2020, we lost about almost 10%. 2021, we recovered about 6%. Right? So, pakita nyo. And then, this year, 2022, if we grow 4.5%, we are back to 2019. right? So ang analogy ko dyan is like you're driving, papunta mga ano sa inyo, nagbiyahe during the Holy Week, umakyat kayo ng Baguio, pumunta ka sa Quezon. Ang description ko ng ginawa ng pandemic is na-derail kayo pababa instead ng paakyat. So parang ganyan. So kung you are back at 2019, you simply went back to the main road, but may nawala sa'yo. Right? So tingnan nyo. No? So this should have been our path. Meaning, if we were growing 6% every year, 2019, 2020, 2021, and then this year, nandito na dapat tayo sa about 23 trillion this year. So yun sana yung path natin, yun yung growth. Pero hindi eh, kasi nga na-derail tayo. No? So we have lost opportunity cost natin dito, 25% ang nawala sa potential growth na Pilipinas o potential GDP level. We have lost that much from this pandemic. Ang laki nun, ano? 25% is large. Kinumpute na yan din ng NEDA, we all have the same numbers. That's about 3.5 trillion pesos lost. So, ano na yan? Wala na. Hindi na natin mapapalik. But we can redo moving forward. The question is, if that's the growth na nawala sa atin, how long can we get back to the level, yung gusto nating growth? Kasi ngayon, nakapunta ka pa lang uli sa main road. Pero yun talagang dapat na dadaanan mo kailan. Now, historically, this is a long-term growth path of the Philippines, and the levels makikita ninyo from the major political economic crisis of 1982-83, no? Ito yun yung malaking bagsak natin. Now, if you look at the growth level, kung ile-level natin, kailan natin nabalikan yan? It took us 20 years to get back to that growth level. No, and I am hoping and praying hindi ganyan ang mangyari ngayon, because matagal ang recovery, no? Matagal ang recovery nung levels. Yeah, of course, okay tayo. Okay yung Pilipinas, pero ang tagal. So kaya makikita ninyo in some data that I have shown you in the macro session that we have not been able to bring down poverty as fast as our neighbors because of that, right? So yun, mas steep pa tayo ngayon, no? Steep pa akyat. Kaya very important that we recover very quickly, no? So that's really something that the next administration have to really think about, ang pag-isipang mabuti. All right? Now, having said that, that's the picture, overall picture of where we're supposed to be going. I'm sharing with you, sino ba o saan ba manggagaling yung potential growth over the long term, and how to prevent, that long time lag of about 20 years. No? So here I'm showing you that over the last 6 years of the Duterte administration, basically you will see that what is contributing to the economy or the economic strength is manufacturing and wholesale trade, meaning retail to, yung mga the usual, no? Shopping, ng context ng Filipino. But of course, agri is there, but it's not contributing as much as the others. And some of you are in this industry of finance, it's also a major contributor. But really, it's two. It's manufacturing and retail, which we know retail, for instance, suffered a lot during this pandemic, and that's why its contribution to growth is muted or capped. Okay. Now, if we look at consumers, no, tingnan natin kung so mahalaga yung retail and wholesale trade sa Philippines. So what happens to the consumers? So look at the before the pandemic, fourth quarter 2019, makikita natin this is the structure of the economy, and saan napupunta yung gastos ng mga consumers. You will see a lot of it travel, no? Restaurants, hotel, no? Going out, transport, food, recreation, and was altered significantly by the pandemic. Ayan, nakita natin, instead of growing, they all declined. No? So, ang lumakas ang benta alcohol and some clothing and footwear. No? Yun ang lumakas. Pero look at this growth. These are not fantastic growth. I mean, everything actually declined in the second quarter, almost. And yung pag-increase ng alcohol, more of siguro, alam natin, no? At the start of the pandemic na ipit tayo sa bahay. And then we look a year later, the first year after the pandemic, what is happening now? People realize no, we cannot continue sulking at home, so we have to do something. So what is it that will improve consumption? So you see the priorities change. Education, people want to study, miscellaneous goods. I mean, ito yung mga hindi usually ginagamit. Mostly it has to do with adjustments in the households, then health, housing, etc. But then, ito lang, last December, ano nangyari? You see, if you look at 2019 fourth quarter and fourth quarter 2020, 2 years later, it's back. Ibig sabihin, if you look at the consumer preferences, yung pinagkakagastosan, they're back to pre-COVID levels. So that's really different from consumers. No? Talagang Filipino is a consuming economy. The Philippines is a consuming economy. So when the economy consumption is back, you know that that's good news. Good news yan. Ibig sabihin, we're pushing recovery faster. No? So makikita natin na even during this time of high prices, no, oil in particular, but that did not stop people from traveling. Sinasabi ng iba, revenge spending. I do not call it as such, but yeah, partly, yes. If you look at the leading indicators, makikita din natin the economy is actually crossed the weakness part. No? So this is at least from the purchasing managers index, which means pagka 50 and above, meaning the 50 and above, you see a lot of economic activity in the economy, particularly an index kasi ito. No? So we're looking at manufacturing, retail, wholesale, services. Pag below 50 yan, that means nagde-decline yung wala o kaya negative yun. Hindi nag-grow. But you have seen that we tried first in 2021, but we had the Delta. But now you see it's more or less yung last part dito until December, predictable na yung pag-akyat niya. Okay. Also, I looked at the business expectation survey of the BSP, but and I drew a line. Nakita niyo yung line dito. Sabi ng line dito, at the start of the pandemic, makita natin na distort talaga. And what's really moving very strongly is utilities, no? The blue one. You know, nasa bahay lang tayo most of the time ng 2 years na yon. So it's really yung electricity, no? Water, lakas ng consumption sa bahay, right? But overall, you will see that yung yellow is the main link, no? So the main index, you can see the yellow. It's telling us that businesses are not yet expanding as fast. No, business is different from consumers. So they plan separately. So they're planning, expansion plan nila, hindi pa bumalik sa level ng 2019. Very cautious pa ito, no? And you see business, they always look at the outcomes first, or directions. And it seems to me that hindi pa sila very certain at this point kung gaano kabilis yung expansion. Remember that many businesses suffered a lot in this pandemic. So siguro nagre-recalibrate pa sila ng resources. These include all businesses kasi. So it's not only the large corporations. So medium enterprises, small enterprises are also here. Now, katulad ng sabi ko, the consumers, different ang mga consumers. The consumers, they reflect yung sentiments nila very easily. No? So here I have a longer chart showing you ano yung expectation ng mga consumers natin, Philippine consumers. Look at the main index, tatlo yung pinagkukuhanan natin dyan. What do they think about their family situation, about their family income and economic condition? So basically related yung tatlo na yan. So it's telling you confidence of consumers to spend, which will help predict economic recovery. And this is again survey of the Bangko Sentral. You will see na yung main index, which is the green, darker green, thicker green, nakikita mo yung consumers nagkakaroon siya ng impact, expectations basically sa change of administration. So I highlighted that. 2010, when Pinoy became president, nakita mo lakas ng consumer confidence. So palaging pa nagpapalit ng government, may lakas ang ano ng mga tao na may pagbabago. Yan. So they will consume. No? And then it dropped. Na-realize, ganito lang pala. Then the same thing with the Duterte administration. But of course, in between, may mga negative things na nangyayari. So for example, in 2005, iba sa inyo, nag-aaral pa ng elementary or in high school, tumaas yung VAT. So that affected consumer confidence. And then there was the global financial crisis in 2009. And then very recently, when the train law was implemented, but not explained very well, no? Ano ba yung train law? Pag pinag-aralan niyo yung train law in detail, you will find that it's actually a benefit to us, particularly to the income, yung mga regular income earners. However, it coincided with our, again, challenge with inflation, which I will talk in a bit, no? Yun ang naging challenge. So as you can see, sa bottom rightmost part here, you can already see na ang tumataas na expectation kahit wala pa yung election. So people, they're almost back to pre-COVID expectations. So before COVID, mataas na. Ngayon, bumalik na. So that's what's fueling economic activity now. So now, I want you to understand that kapag hindi match ang consumers at ang business, ang ibig sabihin, if consumers will consume more and business is not preparing or is delayed or late, so magkakaroon ng gap yan. So dyan tayo nagkakaroon ng mga inflation pressures, right? So that's one way to note. No? So I just put that in mind. Okay. I just got this picture from the DOH kahapon, and it looks like okay, no? From the Philippines, the cases are very manageable, 170. You know, if you recall, no, nag-start yung pandemic, ganyan lang yung mga numbers natin. Sinarado natin yung buong economy. No, had we known or nakapaghanda na tayo, maayos na, hindi natin kailangan sinara lahat. Ano? So we have 170 per day na lang. That's good, and hopefully ma-maintain yung level na yan na may cases pero konti na lang ang na-hospital at mahigit sa lahat, wala nang namamatay. Those are very important confidence building measures. That's why you can see the consumers. That's the reason why they're going out, they're spending. It's because nawala na yung kanilang takot sa virus, no? So hopefully we continue also with the necessary tools to protect ourselves. All right? Now, having said that, no, pagtingnan natin, wow, mukhang maganda, magre-recover na tayo. At yung kahit mabagal, okay lang, basta mag-recover at sana faster. But I have to talk about the growth dampeners because those are looking internally, but there are external factors beyond our control, and these are some of the things that I think will affect us. No, inflation, China crisis. I'll talk about that. Repeat global debt burden and workforce imbalance. I draw a lot from the the World Bank analysis last week, which coincides actually with my own interpretation of what's affecting the Philippine economy moving forward. No? So here I got this from the World Bank report saying that ito yung analysis nila, magiging impact ng global development. Number one, the monetary development here in the United States. I'll talk about that later. China also have a problem with real estate. So alam niyo yan, yung Evergrande and then the zero tolerance of COVID will affect us as well. Of course, the war in Ukraine. You see the green, the energy importers. Tayo yan, no? Energy importers. Tapos, wala tayong oil. No? So, may effect yan sa atin. Right? Now, I'll talk about inflation in the Philippines, and I think I've shown this in some of the macro masterclass sessions natin. The inflation in the Philippines is primarily affected by supply, no? Supply siya. So this again comes from my colleague Louis Dumlang, which has very expanded view of all of the impact of inflation in the country. Makikita nyo, halos lahat has to do with supply. So oil is a major reason why inflation is picking up, except one in 82-83 again, where I showed you that bumagsak yung economy natin, halo-halong impact, negative impact yun. Wala na tayong foreign exchange. That's why we cannot buy oil, so prices increase. No? That's why we have the Philippine debt crisis. No? Kaya black yan. No, it's not supply. It's political and economic and debt coming together. And then we have the Gulf War, Asian financial crisis. Then again, 2004, taas tayo ng VAT and recession and food import. So, supply, no? Konti kasi yung pumapasok o nagmamahal yung mga pumapasok sa atin. So, we're forced to increase prices, right? Now, this is, if you look at the Philippines, ang inflation natin is basically food. You manage the price of food, the supply of food, then inflation will be manageable. It's about 40% of the inflation basket. No? You look at the right side, makikita nyo. And left side, you can see comparing it with inflation sources in other countries. Makikita natin na yung Philippines, red is food. No? Malaki yung food. And recently, yung blue, that is where oil basically is coming in, transport. So two things are causing inflation to rise. And most of them, unfortunately, are largely imported sa Philippines. No? Nag-i-import tayo. Right? So crude oil, as you know, continue to rise. There is really no supply problem of oil. Hindi tayo kulang sa oil. May oil. Ang kulang is the speculation because of this Ukraine-Russia war. They speculating that there will not be enough oil. But actually, Russia has oil, other countries have oil. It's a question of lumalabas ba yung oil? Kasi hindi pa naman nagkukulang talaga, except in Europe. But in Asia, for example, where you are, meron. No? Here in the US, they have strategic oil reserves. They are releasing it, but that's not enough to quell speculation. So speculation yan. Kaya tumataas yung price. And that's why it's, if you look at the right side, the gray line here, tumataas yung energy which is practically oil related. No? Yung food natin medyo manageable na eh. Yeah, pero yun pa rin. And if you look at our own data from the NSO, PSA na pala yun, you will see that yung comparing lang, no, yung, ano yung pinakamalalaking ini-import ng Philippines. You see where I highlighted where we have the biggest growth in imports. It is oil, number two. Three, cereals and cereal preparation, which include rice and wheat, and then other food and live animals. Ang lalaki ng growth niyan. So that means we are exposed sa global price movements that's affecting our prices. Kaya ini-import din natin yung price. Ini-import mo yung goods, ini-import mo rin yung price. Right? Yun yun. And if you combine that, pag pinagsama mo, again, this is World Bank estimate, yung impact nung yung imported good inflation to us will cause a 1 to 4% increase in the poverty rate. Again, yun yung nakaka ano sa Pilipinas. Each time we're getting better, something big globally affects us, then pulls us down again. Kaya napakahalaga yung level of recovery natin is not going to be affected by our own internal problems kasi malaki na yung problem sa global. May malaki na yung impact nila sa atin. Right? So, look at these expectations ng mga tao by income level. No? The blue represents relatively the poorer classes, and then the red represents some sort of the D and C, middle class, and then the green represents A. So the lower income, they're always hit the most, no? Nakita mo, sila yung palaging tinatamaan. Sila yung nasa ilalim yung expectation. Ito yung mga expectations nila nasa lupa, no? They don't expect too much. Yeah, and unfortunately, they're also hit the most by these challenges. Right? Yung global and then internal problems natin. And also, if you look around the world, inflation is not a Philippine problem. I'm showing you this so that you'll see that inflation, in fact, the Philippines has relatively lower inflation compared to India and equal to Thailand in Asia. But if you look outside, no, in Europe, for example, inflation, and here in the US, they are above 7%. No? So I'm showing you on the right-hand side the inflation of the US and UK. You can see they're both about 7% right now. No? 8 and 7, something like that. Well, napakataas nun. 40-year high in these places. Why do rich countries have very high inflation, which is very unusual? No? Very unusual yan. Right? Very unusual. Una-una, here I summarize it, is in the US. First, even before the Ukraine-Russia problem, meron ng tinatawag na supply bottlenecks. No? What are the supply bottlenecks? If you look at the left-hand side chart here, you see this is the cost of sending goods through China. Lahat dumadaan sa China. We know China is like the factory of the world. So you finish in China goods and services, or goods, products, no, and some services as well. But China is using a zero COVID policy. So initially they had 21 days quarantine. So yung turnaround ng mga container vans takes a long time, 21, and then gaano katagal magta-travel. So you are delaying the delivery of goods and services. And that's why look, see the container rate went up, from $2,000 lang yan before the pandemic. It went up to about 12,000, and that, obviously, dyan nang galing yung price increases. So everything has become very expensive in the West because they also import a lot. And also, here in the United States and in the developed countries, they use stimulus, no? Ayuda dyan sa Pilipinas na very minimal yung ayuda na ginawa natin. In the developed countries, they gave generous stimulus to their constituents, and yung una, it was for everyone. They can afford it. No? They gave it to everyone. So may extra cash ka, wala kang ginagawa, anong gagawin mo? Then you consume. No? Consume. So robust consumer demand, bili ng bili. And then now that the economy has basically reopened, the unemployment rate has gone down as well. So people have work. Now, again, may trabaho, may income, may stimulus, pero not enough yung goods na dumarating, kaunti lang. So then they will bid up prices. Yeah. And then now we have the oil price increases. Dito sa US, tumaas din ng sweldo ng iba because many people still are not going back to work. So entice them by increasing their pay, right? Yung mga service workers are not back to their places, or because nawalan ng daycare. Yung iba, they still have the stimulus or many savings sila. Yeah. So, no, opening the economy, nacho-choke yan, nacho-choke, nabubulunan, and so the prices increases. And what's going to happen? When inflation is high, that's not going to bode well for monetary policy. Monetary policy requires that you respond by raising interest rates. No, why? We know, no, if you're saving 100 pesos and the interest rate is 2% and inflation is 4%, actually you're losing 2%, di ba? Because inflation is higher than interest rates. So monetary policy will be forced to increase interest rates closer to inflation. Otherwise, ano magiging effect sa'yo kung ang inflation ay mataas, kahit nagsisave ka, pointless, i-consume ko na lang, gastusin ko na lang. Hindi ko maabot yung returns. So what that will create is more demand, lalong tataas yung inflation. And that's why central banks in the world, they try to increase interest rates to lower the impact of inflation. Now, but the interest rates of the world are not the same. Hindi pare-pareho. Okay? So I'm showing you here the interest rates of the US and interest rates in the Philippines. And you will see that mas mataas siyempre ang interest rate sa Philippines kaysa sa US. No? Left-hand side US, right-hand side Philippines. So there is what is known as interest rate differential. Anong impact noon? So if you have an interest rate differential that is large, malaking difference, meaning you are telling, for example, dyan sa Philippines, now 2%. Dito sa US is the interest rate right now here is about 1.75 or yung difference nila. Ano nangyayari? Kung mas mataas yung interest rate sa Philippines, you are attracting dollars to come to the Philippines kasi mas mataas yung return. Now, if the rate differential, yung interest rate sa Philippines minus interest rate sa US, lumiliit na, ngayon lumiit, 1.5, ang average 1.75, you are attracting dollars back to the United States kasi mas malaking return nila dito, right? And that's also one of the reasons why the peso is depreciating. Nagwi-weaken, lumalabas eh. Ito na ako, mas mataas ang interest rates doon sa US. Right? So yun. Kaya we know also because the US is increasing its interest rate, the Philippines will increase interest rates soon. If not June, baka wag muna katapos na ng election, after definitely mag-increase. At least to my mind 50 basis points. So from 2% magiging 2.5 yung overnight lending, and that increases everything else. Right? So yun yung ano ko diyan, tingin ko. Okay, so this is basically it. Let me skip this na. And what about China? From China, what you will see is that important na yung value chain natin sa China ay nandun, pero wag masyadong dependent sa China. And that's affecting all of us right now, because what's happening is that ngayon nga bumaba na yung share ng value chain sa China ng finished goods. Dati yung US is exposed to China by 33%, now it's 24%. Right? Ito yung pinapakita nito, yung green, hindi na ganong malaki na yung binaba at malaki na yung tinaas sa exports ng ASEAN, particularly Philippines, Vietnam, and the rest. The problem with China is the zero COVID policy will affect us more over the long term. Kasi kung hindi sila magpapalit, then hindi gagalaw, walang factory movement, no? So maapektuhan. Kaya meron pa rin tayong supply chain problem moving forward. Mag-i-increase pa din ang prices of goods na galing or will pass through China. And the Philippines does a lot of business with China. Okay? Effect yan sa atin, particularly sa electronics, no? Electronics natin. Because we're not the final goods producer. Middleman lang tayo sa electronics, di ba? So, all the gadgets, sabi ko sa inyo before, merong Philippine component, but we're not the finisher. It's China who usually completes the good. No, if China is delayed, then kahit nagpapadala ka doon, hindi nagagawa. So, ang mangyayari, tataas ang price. Okay? Now, another challenge is the debt. No, there's a lot of noise dyan sa Philippines about the debt na di malaking utang, di natin kaya bayaran niya. I want to disabuse you sa ganyang mindset because look at this chart, this two charts here on your left and your right. You will see that actually the Philippines has a large debt, but there are countries with larger debt based on the share of debt to their GDP. Right? Hindi ibig sabihin porket may utang tayo lubog na tayo, no? Yeah, debt is a problem, but debt can be managed. So that's another question, yung pag-manage sa kanya. Yung question ng debt na malaki is you are not going to be able to borrow that much if the lender does not think you can pay. No? Look at it from a bank or kahit kayo, may papautangin kayo. Hindi nyo naman pautangin ng malaki kung sa tingin nyo hindi makakabayad. Di ba? So the case of the Philippines is the same as well as our neighbors in the region. No? Look at China, look at Mongolia, look at the debt to GDP. No? Philippines will be about 60. So GDP tapos yung utang 60. Yung kapitbahay natin will have higher than us. No? Now, I don't want you to compare. We're not apples and oranges or bananas and mangoes. Hindi pare-pareho yan. But just to assure you that every country in the world borrowed significantly because of the pandemic. And so, yun yung pressure. Yung pressure hindi sa Philippines lang lahat. That they need to pay this debt. No? Kaya very limited ang magiging economic activity post when COVID becomes endemic. Meaning, yung government cannot spend so much anymore. They have to manage na yung debt. Bayaran na yung pwedeng bayaran. No? Pero it doesn't mean na magko-collapse ka dahil sa utang. Of course, I know you may be following global news. Sri Lanka has been affected significantly by their borrowings. So, ibig sabihin, they were not able to manage it even before the pandemic. No? Hindi ito due to the pandemic. The pandemic worsened it, but pre-pandemic they had problems already. But pre-pandemic we're not having problems. No? And so just like many other economists, our call is really, ang tingin ko personally, is that yung debt nandyan, pero kung lalaking economy, liliit yung debt. No? We cannot eliminate it. No? We can pay it slowly. But when you pay it, you give up something. So that means in the next years, it is the private sector that needs to play a big role. Wag na iasa sa government lahat. No? So the government can only do so much, and it has to now concentrate managing what it has. No? Hindi na kailangang palakihin pa yung utang. Wag na masyado mag-borrow in the future. Let the private sector do the borrowing. Let the private sector do the economic expansion. This is also one of the things that I am concerned about, yung workforce skills natin. Yung mga skills mo, this is World Bank cited Malaysia. I don't think this is much different from us. Kulang yung skill level natin to adapt to the digital age. No? So, kailangan unang-una dito, digital transformation. So, access to broadband. Very basic. Most of you have traveled, paglabas mo ng major urban centers ang hina ng signal. Gusto ko tong summary ng World Bank. No? If you look at the lower right-hand table, you will see actually the Philippines only has one red flag. So it's only about the COVID stringency. Mahigpit tayo nung una eh. So I think ito medyo nawala na. But look, basically okay tayo, green tayo eh. You know? Green ng Philippines. Because yun yung yung structure natin, except for commodity dependence, which I'll talk in a bit. Doon lang tayo medyo delikado, pero other than that, okay. And look, we are actually expected to grow the fastest in Asia, ex-India, no? This year by World Bank. In fact, ang expectation nila 5.7 lang. I think we can grow 6 this year, no? Yeah. So what are our expectations? We can easily meet 6%. Kaya because of consumer rebound, no? And then inflation, well, definitely, nakita nyo na yung picture, it will increase depending on the oil prices. Baka mag 5%. But as I've shown you, 5% is an inflation rate that's not going to make us poor, because inflation rate before in the Philippines, alam ni Randall yan, umabot na ng 50, 60. No? So, it's not even close to double digit. And peso, as I said, will weaken dahil yung interest rate natin kailangan tumaas. That's the only way to push on. And also, we import a lot. Ang dami nating in-import. Pinakita ko kanina. Highly dependent on oil, highly dependent even on food imports, no? Ini-import. So, interest rates, 2.5, pinakamababa yan. It could go as high as 3 depending on the next economic team, no? Kasi definitely itong current one will not change that. Unemployment, bababa na. Hopefully people, more companies, more businesses reopens. Pag tinignan natin, I'm not saying, I like this summary of the DOF, which is true. Hindi siya nakikita directly, but this is one reason why the economy, more or less, is hindi tayo nag-collapse because of the weight of the pandemic. Kasi meron kang mga ginawang batas that are very important, and politically we're not being able to pass in the past administration. For example, national ID. If we had done it earlier, we could have made the pandemic, ayuda, and all of these things faster and better, efficient. Wala sanang corruption, walang loophole dyan. Kaya lang din natin nagawa on time. Then the ease of doing business law, no? Anti-red tape authority, yeah. And then we have the Economic Liberalization, the Foreign Investment Act, the Retail Trade Act, the Public Service Act, which allows foreigners now to own and help increase our foreign investments. No? And then, without the universal healthcare law passed, ang hirap ng pandemic. We would have not enough resources. No? Ito mga reality na these reforms were shielded. No? I sinasabi, because of the administration, yes, but they were reforms prepared by previous people pa, ngayon lang naipas. No, if there's any good na makikita natin sa administration ni President Duterte, is itong mga laws na to ay napas, napakahirap ipas na mga ito. Kaya the next admin should continue the reform agenda na mga yan. Just this is, sabi ko, magsasabi ako about part of what I'm researching on. No? For example, yung OFWs na I said, ito yung medyo ako. No? If you look, this is data from the BSP survey. Makikita ninyo, and I think no one has really raised this. Nung pandemic, yung mga OFW maraming pinauwi. And it reflected immediately here. The blue represents the households with OFWs. It was before the pandemic close to 10% of households. Now it's down to below 7, mga 6.5. That's a big drop. No? Maraming family na walang OFW, pinauwi eh. No, there were about 1 million who were repatriated, di ba? And then, yung green represents yung mga nagpapadala. Dati, almost 100% nagpapadala ng pera. Ngayon, 92 na lang. Right? So, come to think of it, that's a major shift and major policy calibration kailangan gawin natin. Paano kung bumaba pa? No? So the OFWs have been helping us through their remittances, helping the Philippines consume more imported goods and increase our import capabilities because of the dollars they send, kahit na kulang yung ini-export natin. Right? And on the right side, suffice it to say, nakakatuwa, savings ng mga OFWs, hindi ganun kalaki binaba, even if others really fell down. So food and savings ang nag-maintain. What is going to be the priority, or should the priority be of the new admin? Number one, para sa akin, dapat we have learned from this pandemic, and this is not going to be the last of the pandemic or any other form for that matter. Dapat matuto na tayo doon. Hindi dapat tayong ad hoc. No? We don't do things because nagawa ito, kailangan ngayon. Hindi pwede, ganun, dapat may process. No? So the admin must be strong in governance. Napakahalaga yung governance. No? So the next one, must think about that. Kasi governance is harmonizing national and local policies. Tulad niyan, sabi ng DOF, ayaw na nila yung work from home. Hindi pwede, di ba? Sayang naman. It provides a lot of opportunities, and the same time contributes to lessening of traffic and the likes. Meron pa naman traffic flow. Lumipat lang naman yung consumer sa online magiging parang hybrid kind of business, di ba? And that is the case, no? Anywhere in the world now, no? So if you can harmonize that would be good. I don't know if you're familiar, 2022 budget gave a lot of money to local governments, no? So marami silang pera ngayon. So paano nila gagamitin yun? Yeah. And then kanina I'm actually thinking, yung sinakita ko sa inyo yung sa food, no? A country like the Philippines should not be importing food that much. Halos lahat na ini-import natin, and you see there's a lot of investigation sa Senate of smuggling of onions na tinatapon na lang. Bakit, no? Because we don't have a clear specific strategy there, no? Parang hit and miss, no? Hit and miss tayo sa agri. We should have prepared for this, but the new admin should be implementing it already. May climate change pa, no? So, a storm in summer like Agaton can do that. That's climate change. So, what are we doing? Ganun na lang ba tayo? After may tutulong naman tayo. And that doesn't solve the problem. It will be a continuing pressure sa economy ng Pilipinas, yung mga climate change issues na ito. So we have to do something. We cannot let it go like that. So maganda sana may climate finance, no? Merong ESG investment kind of type, no? Mag-encourage tayo diyan. Sinasabi ko dito, it's to institutionalize pandemic protocols and make them public good. Ano yung ibig sabihin? Gastusan na natin. Huwag na nating antayin na may crisis uli. Internet should be a public good, meaning everybody should have access to the internet. Proposal ko dyan, at least 6 gigabyte speed man lang, no? Kung dito or sa mga island, no? Dapat buong Philippines maging internet connected. Then you can do a lot of things. Sa ngayon, may limitation pa eh. So let's hope that will be the plate of the next admin. And then this pandemic also created a lot of loopholes. A lot of people earn money and were not covered by the tax blanket. I'm not saying na ganun, but it's unfair because there's a lot of people uh, who are just earning purely income. They're taxed more than those who are able to get, earnings from non-taxable instruments. No? You know what I'm saying. So kailangan yung mga high traffic digital investments and transactions makover nun. Fairness yon, and it's important for our economic recovery. The government will not have enough resources anymore to pursue and to help the future, no? So kailangan talaga doon. Ako, hindi na kailangan magdagdag ng hindi kailangan taasan yung tax rate, but increase the coverage to tax areas that are not yet taxed, or the digital world, no? Paano siya itatax? So yung mga yun. Yeah, I think so. I will end there. Importante. I believe that God will do something in our country. Kaya I'm comfortable with this verse that hindi basta-basta mangyayari yung hindi gusto ni Lord na mag-lead sa bansa natin. So, thank you, and we'll be happy to answer questions. Mute ka yata, Randall.
So I'm gonna picking up questions from our group. Doc Alvin, balik ka lang. Okay. Nawala ka sa picture. So I'm gonna be picking up questions from the group also, no? Pero siguro, meron akong ako mismo may mga tanong ko sa iyo, no? Burdening questions that I wanted to ask. I know you mentioned this kanina, pero siguro daan lang natin. Siguro, what would be sa'yo, pinaka biggest win of the current administration? What would be the biggest win during the 6 years? And then also, following up that, the biggest failure. Maganda yan. No? So, ano yung bibigyan mo ng pass mark at saka fail mark?
Sa economic part, malaki, marami sila nagawa. Yun lang. Of course, yung pinakita ko kanina na binabanduago ng DOF, they are real game changers yan. Mm-hmm. No? For example, yung Public Service Act, definition ng Public Service Act. No? I mean, they wanted to change the Constitution when they can simply change the definition in the law. So nagawa, di ba? But that has been there for like 20 years.
Yeah.
No? Yung mga ganon, hindi lang yon, yung rice tarification. We know we cannot fight the price of rice in other countries. We are not able to do that. So it will only lead to a lot of frustration sa farmers natin. So why not take the opportunity of putting tariffs and helping our farmers?
At the same time, yeah.
At the same time, kaya lang, yun nga, again, iba yung law tsaka sa nag-implement. But I'm just saying those laws are very important because it helps the country. It helps the farmers, for example, or help the country in Public Service Act allows us more foreign investors to come to the Philippines. At least, no, prepares. No, now, papasok ba sila? It's another question. But the door is open. Yun yung kaysa dati nakasarado yung pinto Ngayon binuksan yung pinto. So yung ibang attraction, for example, the Anti-Red Tape Act law, no, which I think many people are not familiar with, na all government agencies are required to commit to what they say they will do. If they do not do it, you can go to ARTA and you can sumbong them, and then ARTA will go after them. Kaya marami tayong pwedeng gawin dyan. Tapos yung healthcare law, as I said, universal healthcare means that, it helps fund a lot of health problems. So the COVID pandemic, kahit papaano, doon na nagamit agad yung strength ng batas na yan. Bill also is important. Now again, the strategy, yun ang question, no? Kung tama ba na sa China ka mangutang, or government ba dapat ba public-private partnership? Those are context specific na. But the idea itself of build is really, ano yan, tama yun. Pero para sa akin, ang next na dapat sanang ginawa, yung nag-fail tayo, yan, yung for example, itong internet, no? Broadband. Ang tagal na eh, hindi nagawa. I think marami ang may mga barriers somewhere dyan, no? So, yan, I think it's a failure because time pa ni GMA yun eh. Dapat nagawa din yun. If we had the internet connections prior to this pandemic, no? Nahanda mo yan. And then the national ID na i-down. Kasi hindi mo ma-download yung national ID dahil wala kang infrastructure na digital eh. So kailangan pumunta yung PSA sa bawat town, no, para mag-register. Kailan pa ma-upload yung data? Yung mga ganun. I'm just saying na it took time. It will take time for all of this. Hindi siya ano na to. It cannot be done without one being done first, parang ganyan. So I think these are things na sana nagawa, no, na naayos natin. And yun, so I think in a bigger sense, marami tayong wins sa economic side na hindi maayos na i-communicate. Katulad din sabi ko yung train law. If you invite someone to talk about ito sa masterclass about the law, yung mga batas sa tax, it's very important to find out that the train law actually help a lot of the income earner, yung mga regular income earner, na binaba yung tax rates eh. Diba? And even the corporations. No? Tapos yung nagkaroon ka ng one person become a corporation. No? That's, these are game-changing legislations na pinas nitong administration na to. Pero hindi magaling mag-communicate. Hindi communicate na ito pala. Kaya yung train law naghahalak mga tao, di ba? Tumaas ang presyo. Pero hindi naisip na bumaba yung tax rates. I remember in Ateneo, I invited investment groups to come to explain to faculty na, bababa kasi yung tax nyo, mayroon kayong extra, i-save nyo. Diba? Kasi hindi ano na yun eh. Parang free income yun eh. So, para hindi mawala, para wala pa din, ilagay nyo sa savings. No? Parang I remember doing that. No? So, nasayang yung mga ganun. Kasi hindi na-inform yung mga tao, no, ng maayos. No? Puro generalization. So, I think communication was, to me, not very good in this administration.
Okay.
Kasi they lean on the president to talk. And the president do not talk about these things. Na mga benefit sana ng mga tao. Parang alam mo yun, benefit mo pero hindi mo alam. Parang nag-hire ka ng company, hindi mo alam kasama pala yun. So, nawo-worry mo lang yung pagkain mo. Hindi mo alam, marami pa palang benefit na available. So, I believe hindi yan na-communicate very well. Up to today.
Right. Just to follow up yung no, let's talk about the build. Kasi napansin ko sa graph, sa GDP natin, yung impact ng construction, sa development, kumbaga, was not as expected to be, kasi I remember beginning of the admin, sabi natin that's going to be a game changer and stuff like that. So is it na-shadow ba siya ng COVID or, did we not do enough of that? And then following with that, yung structure of the build, why abandon, PPP and go direct borrowing and finance it ourselves? Was that a good strategy? Or was that, ano bang mga naging barriers natin with that, no? Kasi I remember the beginning of the year, no, 20, we were really excited about the build, and medyo nag-whimper na rin siya over the time, no?
Well, yung build naman, in fairness, maraming nagawa. Of course, hindi natapos. 6 years lang kasi, an infra project, ang gestation period niyan, mga 10 years talaga, lalo na kung malalaki. No? So, for example, yung MRT ginagawa dyan sa Commonwealth, that started from GMA's time pa. No? So, hindi pa nga tapos na si President Duterte almost. No? So, ganun. And they cannot take credit for all of that kasi administration over administration ang mga gumawa niyan. Of course, sa kanila natapos. Parang ganun yung iba.
Yeah,
But for example, yung Skyway, I think it's a major, major comfort for the driving public. Pero kasi ang mga na-miss nila, inuna nila yung mga roads, na-miss nila yung mass transport, which is the more important one. Kasi anong ginagawa mo? Gumawa ka ng maraming kalye, adi you're telling people buy cars. Dapat ang ginawa mo, gumawa ka ng maraming trains, maraming bus systems. So that could have, increased impact, mas malaking impact kasi masang tatamaan doon eh.
Tsaka,
Kaya ngayon, tinan mo,
tsaka mas
pila-pila pa rin yung
yeah. Tsaka Doc Alvin, mas cost efficient pa yun eh, di ba? Parang when you look the way you build it, no, you keep on building it kasi syempre ngayon congestion ang issue natin, di ba? So ngayon, bibili na naman ako pangalawa, we know with all the MMDA rules, bibili na naman additional, expect car sales to go up again. So,
yes. Kaya nga, hindi dapat ganun yung, well, tama naman na decongest ng roads, pero dapat commensurate, nag-increase ka rin ng capacity ng public transport.
Yeah. Dapat meron sila pag pinag-congest mo. Okay, so again, how about the yung strategy, abandoning PPP and borrowing more money for that? Is that a good strategy talaga, or how is it gonna impact our economy moving forward? Kasi alam mo naman, panahon namin ni Alvin, no? Allergic kami, no? Parang yung joke sa atin, no? Pinanganak tayo, no? Marami tayong utang, no? And it took a while for us to start paying off the debt from the 70s and the 80s, di ba?
Well, yung ako personally, kung tatanungin mo, hybrid sana. Meron kasi siyempre ayaw ng private sector gawin. So, kailangan mo utangin yun. O ikaw gagawa nun. Pero kung may private sector na willing, papabid ko yun. So, yun sana. Pero they decided to go on the loan side. So, lahat kinuha ng public. Kasi ganito din naman yung reality doon, Randall. At the end of the day, kailangan ng government guarantee. Parang sila rin yung magbabayad pag hindi nakabayad yung private. Ganyan nangyari sa MRT, di ba? Hindi makabayad yung ganun din. Private nga gumawa, at the end of the day, bumalik din sa gobyerno. Ganun yun. Ganun yung doon. Pero, well,
but we have models that work, like yung mga highways, di ba?
Oo. Pero yun nga, it depends nga dun sa management ng private sector na papasok. So, hindi lahat pare-pareho yung...
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, we're gonna be picking up questions from... Actually, marami pang question, pero I'll do that privately. No? Okay. So, last, before I pick up the questions from the audience. No? So, Doc Alvin, ano ba yung masasabi mong whoever's gonna win in this May election, ano ba yung number one priority para sa kanila? The first thing, so the things that they need to do in the first 100 days, what would be your wish list for them, whoever they are?
Oh, well, kanina parang nilagay ko na yung ako parang para sa akin natuto na tayo sa pandemic. Let's not put this into waste, no? What are the learnings? Ano mo na agad siya, institutionalize mo na siya.
Healthcare system natin.
Yung healthcare system, ano yung surveillance mechanisms, tapos nag-create ka ng discipline kind, may pagka-discipline improvement doon sa mask and the rest. So kung pwedeng improve yun. Tapos para sa akin in first 100 days probably kung naka-ready na yung structure, nakahanda na talaga yung mga plano, i-connect mo na yung internet ng buong Pilipinas. That would be a major game changer sa atin if, connected. Kasi, let's face it, hindi na maibabalik yung everything is face-to-face. Tsaka, this is the opportunity to link yung mga islands natin, no? So,
and hindi yan imposible gawin, no? It's not something.
Hindi imposible. Hindi ko nga alam ano ang naglilimit sa atin to do that. So, I'm not an engineer. Alam ko, of course, merong limitasyon dyan at some point, but we have been talking about it for years. So it should have been ready by now.
Okay.
And then dapat may magandang may magandang sa first 100 days, may magandang plan how to manage the debt. No, explain kasi natatakot yung tao doon eh. So you have to give confidence sa mga tao. Ito yung ito yung agenda natin, ito yung debt natin. Pero yun nga, huwag kayong matakot. Ito kasi gagawin namin para hindi tayo ma-pressure. So we don't have like a Sri Lanka type default na kailangan malaman ng mga tao yan. And then para sa akin again, yung agree, kailangan hindi yung tutulungan yung farmers. No, there in the first 100 days there must be very specific steps. What will you do to the agricultural sector? Hindi siya pwedeng bibigyan namin silang pera, papautangin namin sila. Saan? Sino? Anong produkto? Kailangan ganun ka-specific. We have to be I cannot parang if you travel around the Philippines, napo-frustrate ka. Ang daming lupa, tapos ini-import.
Tapos,
Ini-import na kamatis.
kaya yung mga farms natin, very unproductive, no? I mean,
Ayun, yun nga eh. So,
with the exception of Dodong, everyone's farm is not doing well, no?
well, kahit si Dodong, sinasabi naman niya, may limitasyon siya. Pero the reality is, it's the way it is designed eh. Kasi ang design natin to help the farmers is to spoon feed them. And we have been doing that for, wala. So, dapat, hindi ako agriculturist, pero I know that is a magic bullet sa economy natin. Because about 30 to 50% of the poor people come from the farming sector. You will save yung pinakita ko kanina, sila yung laging affected pag may nangyayari. Kaya nga natin ginawa yung rice tarification law. You know why? Because the price, if inflation is high, the poor farmers are the most affected. Kaya kailangan bababain mo yung presyo ng pagkain na sila dapat din ay makinapa. So,
which is the irony.
Okay. Yun.
Okay, Doc Alvin, I know I'll put you on the spot. Okay, let's just assume, and when everybody's fearful about it, how would the Philippines perform with the BBM president? Are you hopeful? Are you neutral?
Sorry, ang tingin ko kasi, this is my personal opinion. So to me, it really will not change so much kung sino ang manalo. Kasi pinakita ko kanina, global yung kalaban mo eh. How do you respond to this global problem? So that's why I'm saying the first 100 days dapat ito ginagawa mo kasi ang kalaban mo affected by global events. Now, whatever you have promised in this campaign, lahat yan kayang lubugin ng US interest rate increase, ng supply chain problem ng China, ng pagtaas ng oil. So ano ang preparations mo for that? Now, whoever wins among them will have to address the same problems. And there's not much that they can do na pag nalo sila, let's say, may strategic oil reserves ba ang Pilipinas na pwede na sabihin, gagamitin ko yung reserves. Or hindi ko gagamitin. Wala tayong gano'n eh. Very limited din yung options na available sa kanila eh. So they will all start in the same starting line. So ito lang ang meron ka. So it's a matter of where do you put it the most. No? Hindi mo siya, yung levers mo, pare-pareho lang yung pipindutin mo.
Pero Doc,
it's a question, sinong unahin mong pipindutin?
Pero isn't it also parang more reason why you have to select properly because of what's gonna happen? Hindi naman to, siguro if this was 6 years ago, it might have pero ngayon, isn't it more important to choose the right leader, no? Because of what's going on. I mean, ano man nag-usap kami ni Doc Alvin, di ba? We were saying, whoever's going to be the next president, kawawa, no? But isn't that even more important for us to select the right leader coming forward?
Yeah, kaya yung sinabi ko kanina, governance will be very important kasi pwedeng tama yung pindot ay tama yung button na pinush mo, pero mali yung governance mechanism mo, the way you do things, then you worsen it. The problem will not go away, will be worsened. So important na kaya nga dun sa mga kandidato, tingnan natin ano ba yung governance promises nila. I'm not looking at the what you will get, but what reforms you will do to, let's say, sabihin na natin yung anti-corruption, lahat naman sila sabihin ayaw namin ng corruption. Pero ano yung gagawin mo specifically to manage that? No? Yung governance mechanism. Kasi I think in this administration, naging lax tayo dyan sa governance eh. And that's the reason why hindi ka nakaka-communicate properly. Kasi hindi alam nung kanan na kamay kung anong ginagawa ng kaliwang kamay. Governance yan eh. So what you want to see is that the government that you have really knows, no? Yung sinasabi ko kanina, na governance from national to local. Connected ka dapat. Alam mo yung ginagawa ng mga local governments, and the local governments can support the national government. They're not doing it on their own. Yeah.
Okay. Now, you also talked about topic na natin to prior, Doc Alvin, no? Now we're seeing and people are now calling it an educational crisis, no? How's that going to have a long-term impact? Kasi 2 years virtually. Alam naman natin, a lot of the students were not really connected, the internet, or even for those who are connected, many of them are not really learning. So, what's going to have the long-term, ano may maging long-term impact na to na 2 taon, yung mga students natin, hindi talaga natuto or so, what's going to be your take on this?
Yun yung pinakita ko kanina yung sa Malaysia, di ba? Magkakaroon ka ng skill dito skill gap di ba? Ano yung skills na develop natin during this pandemic, di ba? Maraming gumaling sa computer, pero yun lang ba yun? Well, sana tinake advantage ng mga kabataan na natuto rin sila ng other skills, which of course is not possible for all families kasi hindi naman lahat pare-parehong income level. So yung majority talagang nalimit sila sa kung ano lang pwede nilang gawin in their small space. So ang future impact yan, of course, makikita mo sa productivity ng mga next wave workers, no? Makikita natin sinabi ko na to before, may problema ka na sa stunting, madadagdagan mo pa ng stunted thinking.
Yeah.
Productivity yan, no? So I hope na yung mga basic skills hindi nawala.
Okay.
Kung hindi siya makikita mo yan sa mga workers na darating eh.
Yeah. Well, gumaling naman sila sa TikTok so I don't know. Okay, so
naging creative naman.
Creative naman. Sana na ma-harness, but si Doc Alvin and I, we've been talking about that for quite some time already, no? So we will see. But again, it's not too late. So I'm all for, going back to school. We need that to happen, no? So may magandang tanong si Ron Arca kanina dito, no? Is the USD still a good measurement of investment mobility across economies? With everything's happening, Russia, meron ba USD pa rin ang I know it is still, but moving forward, how is it gonna change?
Siguro nakita mo na yun, no? They put sanctions on Russia. Ano yung pinakahirap kunin ng Russia? It's their US dollar reserves. So that tells you na the dollar is still king. I mean, hindi pa rin siya kayang itinag ng ng changes in the global environment. The dollar is still a very important currency kahit na ano pa ang gawin natin because it's so widespreadly it's available almost everywhere. Yun yung yun yung how do you stop that na hindi na siya i-recognize? Para mo na sinabi wala ng United States.
Yeah.
No? Kaya matagal pa. That has been the objective for years to kaya nga nagkaroon ng euro, no? Kaya yung yen lumakas, kaya itong what's this the Chinese yuan binigyan ng teeth. Wala, hindi pa din eh.
Okay. Yeah. Nakangiti pa din si US, no? So, Doc Alvin, no, you mentioned kanina sa talk mo yung mga liberalization sa telco. Just following the question of Christopher Sino Chan, ano bang I know we've been trying to do that, no, to liberalize it. Is it gonna be really a good thing to allow the foreigners to come in? I know it's good for competition and everything. Anong tingin mo in the short-term impact on these things? Kasi ang question is, darating nga ba sila at this point in time, di ba?
Ayun. Yun nga, that's the point. Ang point ko lang kasi nga, na-open mo na yung door, no? So papunta ba sila? Hindi rin natin masabi kasi tayo lang ba ang
Yeah.
liberal?
Are we from that perspective, are we attracted to them? Attractive to them at this point?
Alam mo, maraming gustong pumasok sa Philippines dati pa.
Mm.
Kaya lang ayaw nila yung 60-40, no? Yung limited yung kanilang
Okay.
control. So, for example, I know of a huge Korean retail giant wanting to come to the Philippines pero gusto nila sila yung may control. Gusto nilang mag-partner pero sila yung may control. 'Di ba? And they have been asking why are you limiting us? You allow us to come in through your culture but you don't allow us to come into your yung consumer market, 'di ba? Inconsistent, no? So nangyayari, umu-order ka pa sa labas, mas mahal pa yung tong Korean wave, no, for example. Pero it doesn't necessarily mean naman na if when they come in here everything is going to be imported, no? So kasi kasama sa kanilang pagpasok yung technology rin yung learning and the likes, no? Pwede naman sila mag-majority but when they come in, hindi naman yan papasok, papel lang ang dala They will have to build bricks and mortars, no? Like si IKEA nga pumasok even before all of this, no? But now with the retail trade liberalization, there's no stopping that company from building more IKEAs around the country, owning it 100%. 'Di ba? I mean, come to think of that. Now, the question is, sasabihin kawawa yung mga local yes, may tama sa kanila in the short term, but that should start people to think, what are the products I can sell to IKEA that IKEA will accept as quality good, 'di ba? Yun yung dapat ganun ng mindset natin kasi gusto nating bumili sa IKEA, pero ayaw naman natin gumawa ng products na pwedeng ibenta sa IKEA. Yung kanina kasi pinapakita ko, consumer mindset tayo But what about the entrepreneur mind side, no? Yung cautious palagi sa atin. Yun. Ganun din yung sa telco, same thing.
We need to be very competitive, nag-i-issue sa atin, 'di ba? I mean, yan yung situation, Telco, clearly, no? I mean, we need to open it, we need to allow them to come in without that kind of So may maganda question dito, no? Si Don and si Ivy Sepe. Kaibigan ko to. 'Di ba? We were voted as the, one of the fastest emerging economies, no? Pero did the pandemic change it? Is the Philippines still considered a fast emerging economy? We were expanding prior to that, and of course, moving forward, ano na status natin?
Well, yun nga, yung pinakita ko kanina, even the World Bank assess us to be still fastest growing Ibig sabihin, structurally, kaya pa natin mag-grow ng mabilis.
Right. Okay.
No?
Despite
Kasi nga, despite that, ang inaano ko lang is yung magiging downside natin is external, which is inflation from abroad. Yun yung magdadagdag ng pressure sa atin. Ngayon, sabi ng analysis nila, okay pa tayo Kaya lang, ang impact nga nung tumaas pa yung oil.
Yeah.
Nasa 120 range tayo. Pag nag-market yan ng 120, malaking impact na sa atin yan. And then, papasa na sa food yan.
May tipping point yan di ba? Wala pa ba tayo sa tipping point?
Mumalapit na tayo sa sa threshold So, kaya nga dapat ngayon sa first 100 days, yung sinasabi ko, dapat meron kang counter attack diyan. Counter attack mo diyan. Ano gagawin mo ng mga farmers mo para teka, huwag na tayo masyado mag-import, at least man lang yung kaya nating produce. Yung oil, wala tayong magagawa 'Di ba? But
sana ganyan yung mga naririnig natin sa kampanya, no? Para mas importante. Kaso, pag ganyan yung kampanya, wala makikinig. Okay. So, hugot. Okay. Ito, maganda question to. I'd like to pick it up from Ivy, no? So, ito, very personal to. How can regular Filipinos like us help grow the Philippine economy? Is it increasing consumption? Di ba? Para sa ekonomiya, sabi nila. Is it encouraging Filipinos to have more quality education? Growing our businesses, etc.? From a more personal, practical perspective, how can we help our own economy? And that. Thank you, Ivy. I love that question.
Thank you. Maganda. Katulad sabi ko kanina, ang gap natin nasa entrepreneur business side. Mas konti ang risk takers na mga Pilipino. At yung mga nagre-risk take sa atin, dati nang mayaman. So hindi na nila,
Mukha
I
ni
mean,
Alvin, no?
they have nothing to lose. But kailangan malaki ang risk-taking natin, mindset natin. So, ibig ko sabihin, tsaka, we have to be creative. Hindi na tayo, tinitingnan ko yung mga bago nag-business nag-open restaurants.
Pareho.
Ganun pa rin eh, di ba? Think of something new that the world will appreciate or kahit nang i-appreciate lang ng mga Pilipino. Kasi okay na tayo sa consumption eh. I-balance lang natin na sana yung kino-consume natin, mga produktong gawa ng mga companies natin so that in a way, income goes around. No? So hindi tayo nagpuput pressure dun sa foreign exchange natin. Well, I'm not saying na mali yun. Hindi yun mali. But kaya lang, nagiging sobrang dependent natin sa import. And yun yung nagpupush ng pressure sa atin na ganitong may problem tayo, yung global problem is continuing, at yung climate change, no, will add more to that. No? Hindi pa, I mean, I'm not a climate person, but I can see the implications. No? Kung halimbawa, magkaroon pa ng hindi ng disaster, for example, mag-iba yung production ng food sa ibang country. Let's say, wag naman, no, sabihin ni Vietnam, ay hindi na kami makaproduce ng enough rice, wala na kami mabebenta sa inyo.
Yeah.
Or yung iba. Anong gagawin natin, 'di ba? Yung mga ganyan. So to think that's to me, the government must be thinking like way ahead do sa mga ganong situation na yan. Kasi entrepreneurial 'yon. Ibig sabihin nag-iisip. Hindi siya yung ito lang available, ito lang gagawin ko, 'di ba? Parang nakita ko, nag-rebound tayo from the pandemic, na nagbukas ulit mga restaurants, mga retail na na okay naman, pero sana may konting value creation na bago yung
kakaiba. Doc, 'di ba? I mean, if you look at the US history, no, the US economy became good because it was based on the number of agriculture and this mom and pop nila, 'di ba? I mean, that's how they really became a global power. And we need to build that also. So, tatanong ko to sa iyo, Doc Alvin, from Joel and Jennifer Ranola. Okay, maganda itong tanong niya. No? Who among the presidentiables has the capability and knowledge to continue good governance, good programs? Or good programs of the current admin? Yun yung tanong niya.
Well, kaya nga, tingnan ninyo yung mga pinagsasabi nila at yung mga plataforma niya. It's really based on the platforms and what they are saying. Because kung titingnan lang natin, kung pinakikinggan ko yung sa mga debate, na iniisip ko iniisip ba nila yung sinasabi nila? I mean, I'm not going to name names now kasi I'm not going to recommend any candidate. But I'm just saying na, based on what I've told you, who do you think among them can explain it the way I explain it to you? Because that should be your president, someone who knows the issues like an economist. Because this you cannot say, bahala ka na dyan, ikaw na gumawa niyan, ikaw naman ang NEDA, ikaw naman ang BSP. No, this should be something that the president knows and understands, whoever that person is going to be. And sa tingin ko, for example, yun ang problema kay BBM, hindi siya nagpupunta sa mga debate. So hindi na.
Kung di sumisipot, paano yun?
Tapos yung iba naman na sumisipot, pinakikinggan ko kung ano-ano naman sinasabi. Diba? So it's a question now na basahin mo talaga, intindihin mo. Ano yung sinasabi nila in detail? The devil is in the details. Ano ba yung kasi may narinig ako sabi, pag naging presidente siya, tatanggalin niya yung tax. Ano yung implication nun? Nakikita mo, ang laki na utang mo, tatanggalan mo ng tax. Saan mo kukuha ng pangbayad? Okay? So you have to balance something like that. Yung isa naman, ang sabi naman, i-improve ko yung governance. How? You have to be very specific. Anong gagawin mo? Halimbawa, ako, may nagtanong sa akin, isa sa kanila dati Sabi niya, ano ba pwedeng gawin sa corruption? Sabi ko, kung akong tatanungin mo, bapalitan ko yung kung hindi ako abogado, pero gusto ko, pag corrupt o pag suspected na corrupt, kulong na muna, tsaka na lang natin, tsaka niya i-prove sa court na hindi siya corrupt. Hindi pwede yun Pero I mean, ganun na yung frustration ko nung tinanong ako. Pero I'm just saying that's the ano. All of them have very general answers to these questions that you are asking me right now. And yung kaya track record ngayon ang tignan nyo. Sino ba yung may track record?
Right.
Na yung sinasabi niya, napakita niya na, nagawa niya na.
That's endorsing without endorsing. Anyway. Okay. So, Doc Alvin, ito maganda. So on a personal level, sabi ni Ronaldin Nicanor, no? So, where to invest? Local ba o global? At this point in time, at syempre, financial advisors to mga to, no? So, saan maglalagay ba ng pera? Local ba or global ba? Ano ba?
Alam mo, meron akong I don't know if you remember. Hindi pala tayo, hindi tayo magkasama noon sa ano ko noon sa Ateneo, pinadala ko sa Qatar. I talked about patriotic investing.
Oo nga.
Patriotic investing. So ang sinasabi ko doon, yes, kailangan mag-invest. Pero if you know that you can help your country with your resources, why not invest in your country? Pero kailangan strategic din. No? May malinaw bakit, 'di ba? So hindi yung nag-invest ka lang sa mga kumpanya. Alam ko, for example, pati tingnan mo yung stock market ngayon, ano ba yan? Di ba? Parang,
tatlong taon ng logo yan. I mean, di ba?
Oo, di ba? Pero come to think of it, that is where you should be investing patriotically. And challenge doon, they do not give you the best returns. So I know, no? So kailangan din na balance ka din. So siguro kung magkakaroon tayo ng portfolio, para naman matulungan yung mga local companies natin. So meron ka sigurong government securities, meron ka local stock market, and then yung rest is doon sa medyo mas maganda ang return sa ibang bansa.
In other words, magre-repa.
Huwag mo yung local.
Yeah. Kanina, no, I was rebalancing. Kwento ko lang, Doc Alvin, no? I was rebalancing. So, nag-iisip ako, no, how to rebalance. So, napaisip ako talaga, do I, remove money from, let's say, a Philippine equity type of fund or remove money from a global fund? So, nagdadalawang isip ako ngayon. Kasi nakita ko, no, yung global, they recovered faster. Yung local, hindi pa din mabagal na recovery. Then again, naalala ko din, di ba? Pero alam mo yun, nagka-struggle din ako as a Filipino. If I remove money from here, I'm taking money out of the capital market kahit pa paano, no? And then I'm gonna rebalance it to, establish. It's So honestly, maganda yung question mo. Ano magagawin ko? At the end of the day, siguro Solomonic. I just need to balance it. Partial dito, partial doon. If I need to rebalance. No? So, yun lang. So, it's a good question. If we're not gonna, kung wala tayong faith sa sarili nating market, what's gonna happen to our market? And maganda kasi, in the last few years, our local market has been growing extensively. Ito maganda guys, no? Kahit na, umalis na yung mga foreign market, we remain afloat because there's a lot of you and me investing. So, again, bigla ako na-convict, no? Anyway, so, but patriotic. So, it's a good question. Ikaw mag-aano niya. Sabi nila Doc Alvin daw for Department of Finance. I think si Doc Alvin...
Tira ka ng konti sa Pilipinas.
Mag-iwan.
Kasi yun ang natin eh. I mean, you cannot, if you put it all outside, lalabas yun dito, magiging foreign exchange yun, di ba? Kasi lalabas dito yun eh. So pupunta yun. Magpe-pressure yun sa piso, mag-weaken yung piso, di ba? Parang, pinakita ko na yung mga interconnection yan. So kung lahat magiging ganyan, yun ang may effect yan. So dapat medyo rin. Tsaka sa sinabi ko kanina, di ba? The growth level is we're going to grow fast. Hindi siguro obvious pa ngayon, pero ako tingin ko yung mga investable funds and the companies in the Philippines will get back.
Yeah. Let me echo ko lang yung discussion namin ni Philip Hagedorn. So, I bluntly asked Philip, no, he's teaching in the level up. Sabi ko, should I, there, out of frustration, should I just pull it up? Alam mo, sagot na sa akin, Randall, do not give up on the Philippine market. Kasi I'll tell you something, it may not look good today, but the moment things get together, it's gonna grow faster. Yun ang point niya eh. So, baka mamaya, nung recovery niyo, wala ka dun sa, hindi ka naka-invest, maiiwanan ka. And he's saying that, the recovery of the Philippine market is gonna be monumental. So, you just have to be patient. So, that's a good question that I have. Again, naalala ko tuloy, Philip had to talk to me. Sabi niya, Randall, do not give up on Philippine investments. In a way, do not give up on the Philippine economy. Tsaka, dito pa rin tayo nakatira, dito pa rin tayo gumagastos, dito pa rin tayo kumikita. So, that is something that you might think of. And which is very important as you make your recommendations to your clients. Di ba? So, yun lang. So, sige, let me lead this. In your professional opinions, which sectors do we need to work first on first to facilitate economic recovery that has lasting profound effects? I mean, we mentioned again and time and again, agriculture, pero medyo, alam mo naman, Doc, matrabaho yan. I mean, they don't even know how to fix it. So agriculture, but any other sectors na kailangan natin i-focusan?
Well, yung manufacturing, kasi ang manufacturing natin, while yung pinakita ko kanina, the disadvantage of that manufacturing, it's mostly for export. So hindi nagbe-benefit, very little yung benefit ng general public. So, we have to rebuild our manufacturing sector na in a way na kahit maliliit. Some of you have been to Japan, to Germany, makikita nyo yung sa bahay nila sa taas, sa baba, small shops nila. Nagmamanufacture yun eh. 'Di ba? Yun yung key sa Japanese economic expansion, yung mga pyesa ng sasakyan, for example, small components are subcontracted to small manufacturers in a particular village. Ganon. Yung mga ganon, sana may ganon tayo. Tapos yung sa services, creative economy. Parang hindi sayang yung natutunan nila ngayong pandemic, magaling nga sa TikTok, creative. Gawin nilang income generating, hindi puro video. Ano yung pwede mong gawin doon, no? So yung
Doc, export na natin yung mga troll, di ba? I mean, yan export na. Joke lang.
Ang dami natin pwedeng gawin doon. Yung for example, yung nagtatanga ako, for example, bakit tayo consume ng mga Korean novela? Kaya natin yun eh. 'Di ba? Kaya natin gawin yung mga yun. Bakit yung tulad noon, why cannot we start imbis na gawing kung ano-anong kwentuhan, gawin nating itaas natin level, no? O si Rio, sabi niya, OFW from Japan. Di ba Rio, yun yung sinasabi ko, yung mga maliliit na mga
yeah. Good. So, very important. So, if there's anything we picked up here, it's really important how we communicate many of these things, no? So, as financial advisors, guys, listening to here, you know, you have your roles, no? You've been trained by the best. You have Dr. Alvin Ang here among the others. So, Doc Alvin, okay, last question ko to, personal question ko sa inyo. And because alam naman natin, di ba, we both love the Lord, we both serve the Lord. Sovereign si Lord eh. At the end of the day, di ba? I mean, parang ako, na-frustrate ako kasi we put too much faith and too much, we look at our political leaders as saviors. Pero, di ba, medyo nawawala si Lord dun sa picture sa Pilipinas eh. What's your thoughts on that?
Siyempre, no, kahit ano pa mangyari, I mean, God is sovereign. So whoever wins, hindi makakalimutan ng Pilipinas. Hindi niya kinakalimutan ang Pilipinas.
Unless kalimutan natin siya.
Ayun, yun nga. Kaya yung kaninang slide na pinakita ko, di ba? Na yung wicked, they will not prosper in a land where people loves the Lord. So, yun yung key dito eh. So, tayo, ano ba yung natin? Ano ba yung tingin natin sa Diyos? Ano lang ba siya? Holy Week tsaka Christmas lang.
Iiyan ba siya ng something. So, guys, again, this is something that's very important. We should not stop praying for the nation. We should not stop being obedient, to the Lord. And our Savior is the Lord Jesus Christ. It's not our presidents. They're leaders, yes. They have a function. God anoint them. God appoints them. Pero ultimately, we look up to the Lord and not to people. And when we do that, I think we will have a better nation moving forward. Agree, Doc Alvin?
Yeah, siyempre. Kasi ano naman yan eh, pagka naniwala kasi ba, sabi nga, sabi sa Bible, if your trust is in humans, hanggang doon lang yun. But if you trust is in God, then it's heavenward. Mas malawak pa. May cap yung human trust natin eh. So, kaya hindi ako natatakot na kung ano man ang mangyayari sa pagbalik ko diyan. Pero I'm hopeful and I'm in faith na whoever is appointed there will have a fear of the Lord na sobrang takot sa Panginoon. Kahit sino pa siya.
Bumalik ka para bumoto, Doc Alvin. No? Okay. So, sige, salamat, Doc Alvin.